Mandy at the sound of the voice. I turned around to see a classmate from my freshman year running towards me from the end of the hallway. "Hey, is it true you're going to perform in that famous live concert? Where did you hear that?" "Yes, it's true." "That's amazing. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "It's going to be streamed, so check it out if you have time." "Really? I'll definitely watch." Their loud voices attracted more students. It seemed that many people knew I was going to be in the concert. "What kind of live show is it?" "It's a violin concert." "Didn't you know Mandy plays the violin? Your violin playing is quite famous, isn't it?" "Really?" Surrounded by many classmates, I felt flustered. "Wow. You're performing in such an amazing live show. So are you getting a lot of allowance from your parents for this?" A classmate blurted out. Hearing that, I felt a tightening sensation in my heart. "What nonsense are you talking about? Stop crowding around Mandy." A friend defended me, and people slowly dispersed. "There is no such family that would give me an allowance." "Mandy, you can endure it because you're the older sister, right?" How many times have I heard that phrase? When I was little, all I could do was bite my lip and nod. Shortly before I turned 4, my sister Kristen was born. Originally, a big party with a cake was planned for my 4th birthday, but it was canceled because Kristen's health was unstable. Our parents couldn't leave her side at the hospital. After Kristen's birth, my parents started spending more time at the hospital, and I stayed more at my grandfather's house. As a result, my kindergarten bag, clothes, and toys gradually increased at my grandfather's house. After a long absence from home, when I returned, I found that my things had decreased and instead, Kristen's things had increased. However, this was unavoidable because Kristen was frail. Just before I graduated from kindergarten, a family trip to a theme park was planned. It was a place I had long wanted to go. However, just before we were supposed to go, Kristen fell ill and was hospitalized. So, my father suggested that just the 2 of us should go, but I refused because I didn't want to go without Kristen and my mother. As a result, I often gave up on many things because of Kristen's presence, but the violin, which I started to play in the year I entered elementary school, was something I could pour my passion into. Because I strongly wanted it, my father bought it for me. At the time, I was thrilled that his attention was directed towards me, but looking back, he might have just given it to me to avoid the hassle. My playing didn't improve. It mostly produced strange sounds. However, when I played in front of Kristen, she seemed to enjoy those weird sounds and always laughed. Finding this amusing, I often held concerts just for Kristen. As time passed, playing became more enjoyable, and I could play proper songs. Kristen always happily listened to my performances. Although I half-hated her, seeing her enjoy my performances made me happy, and I even made concert tickets for her. Those tickets were made from craft paper and pens, and I always reserved the front row seat for her. Often left at my grandfather's house, I received little attention from my parents. I had to endure a lot, but I didn't dislike living with Kristen. A significant change occurred when I was in the 3rd grade of elementary school. My violin teacher handed me a letter with a smile. "This is for you, Mandy. Show it to your parents. I'm sure they'll be delighted." With those words, I handed the letter to my parents. This is an invitation to a concert. The moment she saw the letter, my mother exclaimed in surprise. It was an invitation to perform at a children's violin concert in New York. This event included participants from elementary to junior high school, and I had strongly desired to attend. This was considered the first step towards becoming a world-renowned violinist. Gradually filled with joy at being accepted, I looked up at my parents. "Mandy, this is wonderful. To stand on such a big stage." My parents were very pleased. I, too, was very happy at this moment. It felt like the first time since Kristen was born that my parents acknowledged me. However, that night, when I woke up to go to the bathroom, I accidentally overheard a conversation between my parents. "What should we do about this concert?" It's gonna be difficult, isn't it? They were talking in a somber tone. I only heard fragments, but as I reached for the doorknob, I decided not to ask. Because my name had come up in their conversation. No, that won't work. Mandy will surely follow. Driven by a foreboding feeling, I quietly left the spot. What were they talking about? The answer soon became clear. That weekend, in my room, I was packing all my belongings into a bag. Most of my things were already at my grandfather's house, so packing wasn't too difficult. With that bag, I arrived at my grandfather's house. My grandmother greeted me with a warm smile and hugged me. Try not to be a bother, my father advised, and then he left without looking back. Since that day, I haven't seen my father, mother, or Kristen. At first, I believed they would come to pick me up soon. However, as time passed, I began to feel that something was off. I was abandoned by my parents. I once cried and told my grandfather about this fact. With a stern face, he only said, "They have their reasons. They will definitely come back." Every time I cried, my grandmother would make me omelet, my favorite dish, for dinner. Unlike my mother's, it was creamier. While stroking my head as I ate the omelet, my grandmother always said, as if praying, "Mandy, you are really patient and good, so something happy will definitely happen to you." Now that I am in high school, I still haven't seen my parents, and I gradually felt that they were becoming more concerned about my sister's health and forgetting about my existence. Dreaming of great success through the violin, I aimed to become world famous and eventually surprise my parents. This feeling has grown stronger. Finally, I received an invitation to a renowned violin concert. Unlike the one I participated in as an elementary student, this event included professionals. This event had a segment for young performers from high school to college students. I was confirmed to perform as one of them. One of my long-held dreams was starting to come true. This concert would also be streamed online. Perhaps this performance would reach my parents. If so, they might reassess their thoughts about me. Will the day come when they acknowledge me? With that hope, days passed, and the day of the concert arrived. On that day, my beloved grandparents who raised me were also coming to watch, which was another thing I was looking forward to. I was reinvigorated by the chance to show them my growth. Despite feeling nervous, I headed to New York early before the concert and had arranged to stay at a hotel near the venue. My grandparents were supposed to arrive on the morning of the concert. On the morning of the concert, I woke up earlier than usual and stared blankly out of the hotel window. I still had far to go to become a successful violinist on the world stage. But today would be the beginning of something new. I took out a small piece of paper from my wallet. It was the stub of a concert ticket I had handmade for Kristen. The stub handwritten on craft paper with Mandy's concert. Kristen had torn the stub saying she wanted to see her sister's concert, so I had set up that seat in front of her. I could barely remember Kristen's face now, but I always loved her bright smile. Even if my parents overlooked me, even if it was because of Kristen. At that moment, the room's doorbell rang. Surprised, I quickly put the stub into my pocket and headed to the door. It was much earlier than the time my grandparents were supposed to come. Could they have arrived already? When I opened the door, there stood my grandparents. And behind them, could it be? Dad. It was my father. That was unexpected. He had been missing since I was in 3rd grade. Why suddenly? What for now? These questions came to mind, but I couldn't voice them. My father's complexion was pale, and he looked like he might collapse. From his abnormal expression, it was clear something serious had happened. "Mandy, hey, I need you to listen." As my grandmother started to speak, my father came forward. "It's about Kristen." Hearing this, my heart seemed to freeze. Why does he always prioritize Kristen even at such a crucial time? Despite it being a reunion with his daughter after 7 years. However, witnessing my father's abnormal behavior, I suppressed my discomfort. Had something happened to Kristen? "Please, come in first." With that, I led the three of them into the room. My father sat down on the sofa, his face pale, and knelt down deeply. I was shocked by his appearance. "I'm sorry. Mandy, I regret having neglected you for so long." My father apologized. The father I remembered was more composed, but the man in front of me was noticeably gray-haired and much thinner. "Christine's condition has worsened." I bit my lip hard. So, it was true. My father carefully chose his words as he began to explain past events. When I was invited to perform at a violin concert in 3rd grade, Kristen was wandering between life and death. At the time, I was young and not informed of the details, but Kristen was born with a heart condition. Her lifespan was limited, and it was uncertain whether she would reach adulthood. There were treatments available, but appropriate care wasn't available in the US 7 years ago, necessitating a move to Germany if necessary. Unable to forsake their daughter's future, my parents began considering moving to Germany. When the plan started to materialize, I received the invitation to the concert. The concert was scheduled in New York, coinciding with the planned departure date for Germany. My parents were happy that I would perform at the concert. It had always been a happy scene when I played the violin I had strongly desired, especially in front of Kristen. Moreover, I was approached to participate in an important concert that could be considered the gateway to becoming a renowned violinist. This opportunity was indeed a joyful one. However, the problem was Christine's health and the relocation plan. If we decided to move to Germany, my parents worried that I would give up the concert and go with them. Given my history of sacrificing a lot for Kristen, it wasn't something I could just speak of lightly. I wanted to avoid having to give up on my dreams any further. My parents hoped that I would pursue my dreams. I remembered overhearing my parents' private conversation that night. "That won't do. Mandy will come with us." That's what those words meant. They were determined to support their daughter's dreams. However, they couldn't easily give up on their younger daughter's life either. It was clear that my parents were very troubled. Seeing this, my grandparents made a proposal. "Mandy can stay here. You go and treat Kristen in Germany." With this decision, my parents entrusted me to my grandparents and took Kristen to Germany. I knew about this from a letter addressed to my grandparents that I had found unexpectedly. Why they didn't explain it to me and never visited increased my distrust. I kept waiting for a direct explanation from my parents. But thinking about such a time, I felt anxious. I was angry for being neglected for so long, and I was unsure how to respond. To get back to the story, according to my father, Christine's recovery in Germany went well. However, it took longer than expected. Her health stabilized and she got permission from the doctors to return to the US, but right after returning, Kristen fell ill again. Now, 14-year-old Kristen is in New York awaiting an important surgery, and after returning, she started mentioning my name more frequently, which she barely did before. "I want to hear my sister's violin. I want to meet her," she had started saying. Then, last night, Kristen's health suddenly deteriorated. Currently, Kristen is accompanied by our mother, and the planned surgery might need to be moved up. The surgery could greatly increase her chances of survival. "Mandy, I'm sorry to ask this so suddenly, but could you meet Kristen once?" my father said. I stared blankly at my father as he pressed his head to the ground. An overwhelming amount of information rushed in all at once. Why my parents left me, about Kristen's illness. I can't say that their way of leaving was right, but I think they were considering me in their own way. And about Kristen's current health situation, taking everything in all at once, my mind was in chaos. After thinking for a bit, I quietly spoke. "I understand the situation. However, my feelings were not yet sorted." "Sorry, could you please leave now?" I said in a small voice. When my father quietly raised his head, his face was clouded with despair and suffering, and deep sadness filled his eyes. Why now, at this crucial moment, did he reappear in my life? He had disappeared before while promising to encourage me, so why return now? I understood the reason. He came back because Kristen's health worsened suddenly yesterday. Despite understanding this fact, I still felt a lack of consistency in his actions. After they left me alone for 7 years, there's no reason for me to abandon the most important concert of my life to accept them now. I'm sorry, but I need to focus, I told him. Then, I stood up, turned away from my father's tearful, distorted face as he reached his limit of endurance, and left the room. As I walked towards the concert venue, I continued walking intently. Upon arrival, many staff members were already busy moving around. They were rushing to set up the stage and carrying various equipment. "Is that you, Ms. Anderson?" A voice suddenly called out, and I turned around. There, the person in charge of the concert, who had attended yesterday's meeting, was hurrying towards me. "Good morning," I politely responded to him. He also cheerfully replied, "Good morning." "You're early." "Yes. I just took a little walk." "I'll be right back," I replied, a bit sheepishly. "Coming back? Why not take a look at the venue while you're here?" He stopped for a moment and suggested this to me. I accepted his invitation and decided to check the venue once more before returning to the hotel. Seeing the stage being set up brought a kind of calmness back to me. "How about it? You'll be performing here today," he said, pointing to the brightly shining stage. The stage seemed to sparkle like countless stars scattered across it. "It's really wonderful. But honestly, I feel quite a lot of pressure to perform on such a big stage," I confided to him. "Don't worry. Mandy, you always put in the effort, so I'm sure today's performance will be fantastic," he encouraged me. Although this conversation might sound like typical small talk, his words genuinely helped ease my tension. Nevertheless, my emotions were heightened, and I struggled to hold back tears. My musical journey was simply because I loved the violin and poured my passion into it. Over time, it had turned into a passion worth devoting my life to. I continued to hope that someday, my parents and the still young Kristen would see my performance directly. "Big sister, play the violin." I seemed to hear Kristen's young voice ringing in my ears. Remembering her voice, I took out the stub I had folded myself from my pocket. It was a bent and wrinkled stub that looked well used, but to me it was an irreplaceable treasure. "Thank you. I'm going to prepare for the performance now, so please excuse me," I told him. "Please do your best in the actual performance," he responded. After that, I started walking slowly back to the hotel. While walking, I took out my phone to look up my grandmother's phone number and made the call. As for the high school section, "Next up is Mandy Anderson," announced the voice of the announcer, and a large applause erupted in the venue, as if in response to my name. With the sound of applause behind me, I marched strongly towards the stage, the sound of my shoes echoing. I had decided in my heart not to go to the hospital. Today I decided to play wholeheartedly for myself and for everyone listening. On stage, the stage lights were dazzling, and thanks to their brightness, I could vaguely see the cameras for the broadcast in the dark audience. I decided to give my all to the camera, putting all the emotions I felt through my performance into the music. I hope that my music reaches someone beyond the camera. At the end, I bowed towards the camera, expressing my heartfelt gratitude. About 30 minutes later, after finishing my performance, I was running to leave the concert venue as soon as possible. I had hurriedly dashed off the stage. As the stage lights went out, I quickly started moving and slipped out of the venue. Running was slightly difficult due to the elegant and sophisticated dress I was wearing, but that was only a minor issue. Nothing else was important to me at that moment. Could I really be seen? Was my performance clearly heard? While wondering this, I rushed to the designated hospital. When I arrived at the hospital reception, the receptionist looked a bit surprised by my hurried pace and anxiety. However, when I gave my name, they quickly understood and guided me to the hospital room with a nameplate labeled Kristen Anderson. I placed my hand on the door of the room and slowly opened it as a cold breeze blew out. I closed my eyes for a moment, calmed my heart, then opened them again. Several adults in the room turned around in surprise. Among them, my mother's familiar face showed an even more surprised expression when she saw me. Behind her was Kristin, lying in her hospital bed. She was connected to several tubes, but her eyes widened when she saw me enter the room. "Big sister," she exclaimed loudly. Relieved by her voice, I took a deep breath. "Did you watch?" I asked. "Yeah, I watched everything," Kristin replied happily, her face beaming with the same pure smile she had when she was younger. Then, a doctor in a white coat noticed me and exclaimed, "Are you the one who performed at the concert just now?" "Wow, so you're Kristin's sister." "Ah, it's really like a miracle," he said with a laugh. Puzzled by his words, I tilted my head and asked, "What do you mean by a miracle?" The doctor began to speak in a gentle and warm voice. "The concert was live-streamed thanks to your grandmother, I've heard. It's truly wonderful. Kristin's condition visibly improved because she heard your performance. It's like a magical story. If the sound of a violin really could heal illnesses, we doctors might be out of work," he half-joked. "I'm amazed, really." "Mandy, you really have incredible talent," my mother said, moved. Then, she gently let go of Kristin's hand and warmly grasped mine. "Your performance was truly wonderful." I was deeply moved, she continued. My heart was filled with emotion, and I clenched my fists tightly. I was struggling to hold back tears. Then, as Kristin clearly called out "Big Sister," I slowly walked over to her bed. Kristin reached into a small drawer by her bed and pulled something out, handing it to me. It looked like just a small piece of paper at first glance, but on closer inspection, it was a concert ticket I had made long ago. "Can this still be used?" Kristin asked. Suppressing a laugh, I smiled wryly as if teasing her. "That's already a used stub. But don't worry, next time I'll bring a real ticket, I promised." Kristin's face suddenly brightened, and she laughed happily. Seeing her pure smile naturally soothed my heart. I am still living at my grandparents' house, waiting for Kristin to finish her surgery and be discharged safely. Once the surgery is over, Kristin will also come back to us, and then we will start a new life together as a family. I haven't forgotten all the time I was neglected, nor have I completely forgiven everything, but still, I hope that this time we can truly live together as a family. In addition, I want to let Kristin hear the concerts she missed over the past 7 years. I hope that by doing so, we can reclaim some of the time we lost.